because by the end of the course, we want you to be able to visually and mentally think your way through the entire Bible. So what we're going to do here at the beginning is just give you an introduction. We're going to give you a quick chapter title and a quick overview of what happens. We're going to start in Genesis. We're going to move all the way to the book of Revelation, and we're going to do this in about 10 minutes, okay? It's kind of the goal. So bear with us. We'll be picking up on these and reviewing these more and more as we go throughout the class. Of course, the Bible starts with creation. God creates the wonderful world. He has a garden. He creates Adam and Eve. They're in this wonderful garden with God in His presence, and there's a wonderful blessing. But what happens is mankind then starts to rebel and sin against God. Adam and Eve are going to eat of the forbidden fruit. They get kicked out of the garden, and then there's only two brothers. Cain kills Abel, one kills the other. Then the world is so bad that God has to send a flood in the time of Noah, and then people build this Tower of Babel to try and make a name for themselves. So we're at Genesis 11, and the human race is not off to a good start. And this is the crisis that God wants us to live in the garden with Him. He wants to have a close relationship. Through sin and rebellion, we have separated ourselves from this, and this sets the stage for the whole rest of the Bible. Well, God is now going to start working to restore that relationship and bring people back to Him. It's a story that's going to end up at the garden when we get to the end of the story. So the next section is covenant. God starts this great plan of salvation in Genesis 12, where he comes to Abraham and makes a covenant with Abraham. In that covenant promise, God says, I'll give you a land, I'll give you descendants, I'll give you a blessing, and that in you all the nations of the world will be blessed. And this promise to Abraham is going to drive the story all the way through the Old Testament and into the New Testament. So you remember Abraham has a son named Isaac, Isaac a son named Jacob, Jacob's got 12 sons, one of them Joseph, the guy with the coat, remember? His brothers sell him into slavery, he goes into Egypt, the family moves into Egypt, and then Exodus ends with the family in Egypt. Time goes by, we turn the page, Exodus starts. God is fulfilling that promise to Abraham. They are proliferating. There's a lot of them. That creates a problem for the Pharaoh in Egypt. So he puts them into slavery and is working them as hard as he can. God raises up Moses and calls them out, delivers them out of Egypt. The Exodus event is the great salvation event in the Old Testament. So Moses confronts Pharaoh. God sends the plagues and calls these people out. Moses brings them out of Egypt. But God doesn't want to just deliver them from their slavery. The picture of deliverance and salvation is not just deliverance from something, but it's a movement to something, which is a relationship with God. So as soon as he gets them out of Egypt, he takes them to Mount Sinai in Exodus 19, and God's now going to come crashing down from heaven, and he enters into a Mosaic covenant with them. And here we get this chapter on commandments, and it includes a number of things. God comes down on Mount Sinai and he says, here's the terms of the covenant. I will be your God, you will be my people, and I will dwell in your midst. And he's literal about that dwelling in our midst. He wants to come down from heaven and actually be with them. If he's going to dwell in our midst, he needs a place to stay. So the whole second half of Exodus describes how to build the tabernacle. Once they get the tabernacle built at the end of Exodus, God does come down, crashing down into that tabernacle, and you have the glory of God living in that tabernacle just right down the street. Now, if the holy, awesome God who created the entire world in Genesis 1 now lives in that tabernacle right down the street, everything in your life will change. And that's the book of Leviticus. What do you do with the holy, awesome God right down there? How do you approach Him? How do you worship Him? What do you do if you sin and you're this close to God? And so Leviticus is explaining how the Israelites can deal with God now living right down the street, the holy God and His presence there. We come to the book of Numbers. God picks back up on the story. They're at Mount Sinai. He takes them to the promised land. He says, here's the promised land. It's like the garden. Let's go in and take it. Drive out these Canaanites. And the Israelites said, no, it's too hard. We wish we'd died in the wilderness. God says, fine, go die in the wilderness. And he sends that generation back into the wilderness, lets it die off, takes the next generation, brings this younger generation back to the edge of the promised land. And at this time, before they go in, he says, let's revisit once more what the terms are. So here in the book of Deuteronomy, God gives them the terms by which they can live in the promised land and find blessing with His presence there. So he asked them, do you agree? They said yes, and so great. We turn the page, now we're in Joshua. We start the conquest. And in this chapter, the conquest in Joshua, it's a good news book. Things are going well. People are